Hilchos Temidin Umusafin Perek Rabbi, the laws of the daily and additional sacrifices and services in the temple, chapter 4. Today is all about the raffle. We mentioned yesterday a few times that different services in the morning were done every day by raffle, by lottery. And today the Rambam gets into the details of how those lotteries were conducted, how many there were, and what each lottery was for. It says the Rambam halacha aleph kala avodah sa'elu sha'isin b'chol yom. All of these services that we've spoken about till now, which are done every day, the morning sacrifice, the afternoon sacrifice, the fires on the Mizbeach, the removal of the ashes, the Ketores, the Menorah, the Chavitin, all the things in the last 3 chapters, B'payis hayu oisin oisam, they were done by lottery. That's how we determined which Kohen would do the service. Remember, in wider context, every week there was a different rotation of Kohanim that came for that week, and really every day there was a new rotation, because the weekly watch, the weekly family was divided into 7 days, and you basically got to serve, if you were a Kohen, 1 day out of every 24 weeks. And so every day there was a lottery between all the Kohanim who were there for all the services of the daily Avodah in the temple. How was this lottery conducted? All the Kohanim in the daily family, the daily Beis Av that was serving that day, Nichnasin lelishkas hagazis, would go into the chamber of the hewn stone. This is a chamber that we saw when discussing the structure of the Beis Hamikdash. It was over here, the corner of the temple courtyard. Half of it was actually in the holy space, half of it was outside the holy space. The Kohanim would gather in the Lishkas HaGazis achar sheyala amud hashachar, after dawn. Umulubashin hin bebigdei kuna, they were all ready to go, wearing their Kohanic clothes. V'hamemuna sha'al hapyasais imohen, and the person that was appointed over the raffles was with them. Remember, when the Rambam told us about the people that were serving in the temple, there were 15 officers who were in charge of different things. One of them was in charge of the raffles. This Memuna was there. They would stand in a circle. And the appointed person for the raffles would remove the mitznefes, the turban, as you see here in the picture, of one of the Kohanim and put it right back. But that removal and placing back was the sign, he was the man from which you began to count for the raffle, as we will immediately explain. After the raffle was conducted, any of the men that were selected for service would go do their service. The other Kohanim who didn't get a job, that didn't get part of the raffle, they would be handed over to the attendants, to the assistants on site. They would remove all their holy clothes. They would only leave on their pants, the shorts, till they can replace them with their regular clothing. They would take off the holy pants, and the assistants, the attendants, would put back all these holy clothes in the windows, the lockers, where they were kept. So there were some Kohanim who literally didn't get a part of the daily service in the morning. They would just go off, and if anything else came up that was needed, they would take part in that. Going back to the raffle, Ketzad Mefisin, how do we conduct this lottery? Again, they stand in a circle, Umaskimin al minyan, and they agree to a number, Shmeinim, Meya, Elef, 80, 100, 1,000, Kol minyan she'askim walav, or whatever number they agree on. The Rabbi, in a number of places, discusses these numbers. What is it? 80, 100, 1,000. 100 and 1,000 are very Kabbalistic numbers. They represent completion. 10 times 10, 100 times 10. But why 80? So in one place, the Rebbe suggests that 80, it's the minimum number that was bigger than your average Beis Av. In order to have a raffle that includes all the people, you want to pick a number that's more than the amount of people that you have in the circle. So the Rebbe says 80 was probably the number that was just above what a regular Beis Av looked like. Another solution to this is actually to put the nekudas, the vowelization on this word a little differently. It's not shmoinim, it's not 80. It's umaskimin al minyan shemoinim. They would agree to a number that they would count. And then the examples are only meya or elef, only 100 or 1,000. But it's a different approach also in other commentaries. But the Rambam picks these 3 numbers, 80, 100, 1,000. The person appointed over the raffles would say, okay, stick out your fingers. They could put out either 1 or 2 fingers. If the Kohen put out 3, we'll count 3, but really you should only put out 1 or 2. The thumb wasn't allowed to be stuck out because it can cause cheating. The thumb is short and it's very easy to bend it in, stick it out. If a Kohen realizes the numbers are going to stop not by him, he may maneuver his thumb to maneuver the outcome of the lottery. So no thumbs allowed. Even if a Kohen puts out a thumb, we don't count it. And after everyone has 1 or 2 fingers out, now they have the number from before. The appointee begins counting from the person who was selected before, who he removed the hat. He's the beginning of the count. And he counts the fingers. Keeps going around and around till they reach the number upon which they agreed. Whichever man the number stops by, he is the person who has won the first lottery for service. Incidentally, says the Rambam, why are we counting numbers based on fingers? Why not count the people? Because it's a prohibition to count Jews on their bodies. You have to use something else. Shenemar, as it says, when Shaul wanted to count the people, he counted them with sheep. He didn't count them themselves, because we don't count Jews on their own. Even today, when we count for a minyan, you'll hear people say a pasuk, Hashia, Samecha. They're counting the numbers of the people with different words. So they'll say not 1, not 2. So you don't count the actual people. There were 4 raffles conducted every day in the morning. And the first raffle was done to know who would do the removal of the ashes that was done every day, which was discussed in chapter 2. They made the raffle, whoever won. And this person who won the raffle actually had multiple jobs. Besides for removing the ashes, he was also the one who would set up the wood pile. He would be the one to bring up the 2 additional logs with the morning sacrifice to the Mizbeach. He was also the guy who did the fire pan that we discussed yesterday, the fire pan with the coals, from the outer Mizbeach to the inner Mizbeach in preparation for the incense offering. So it was all stuff related to ash and wood. Then, the second raffle, there was 13 Kohanim who would win this raffle in order of their standing in the circle. What does that mean? Ketzad. The appointee would tell them, put out their fingers. And they would count the way they said. But this time, instead of there being only one winner, whoever the number stopped by, he was winner number 1. He was winner number 1 for the 13 steps that are coming right now. And then the 13 people standing next to him would get the next steps of the service. The person who got the first raffle, winner number 1, he was the one who would slaughter the Tamid, the morning sacrifice. The second one standing to his side, he would receive the blood in the cup and sprinkle it on the altar. The third one, next to the second guy, he was the one who would clean out the inner altar from yesterday's Ketores, the incense altar. The fourth guy to his side, he would clean out and light the menorah. The fifth guy, she would be bringing the head and the foot of the daily sacrifice to the ramp of the Mizbeach. The sixth one would bring the 2 forelegs of the animal of the Tamid. Number 7 would bring up the tail and one of the hind legs. And the 8th guy would bring up the breast and the neck. The 9th guy would bring up the 2 flanks. The 10th guy would bring up the intestines to the ramp. Number 11 brought the flour. Number 12 the pancakes. Those pancakes. And the 13th guy brought up the wine of the libations. So 13 people won the second raffle. The third raffle. This was a special raffle. The appointee would tell all the Kohanim that were there that day, we need to make sure that only people that never did this before are getting in the raffle. Anybody who never got a chance to bring the Ketores should come and be part of this raffle. They come, gather around the appointee, make the raffle. Whoever comes out to be the winner of this raffle is the one who offers the incense that day, and you never went into the raffle again. You can only bring the ketores once in your life. The fourth raffle, and everybody gathers in. Doesn't matter who you are, and they make another lottery, to know who would bring the limbs from the ramp up to the altar. The last couple of guys in the second raffle brought it to the ramp. Now there's another raffle from the ramp to the altar. They made a raffle, and whoever won. This is all for the morning sacrifice. What about the afternoon sacrifice? Says the Rambam, the afternoon sacrifice, there was no new raffles done. Any Kohen who won the raffle in the morning came back and did it a second time for the afternoon. Except for the afternoon incense. There was another raffle so that a new guy can do it. Someone who never offered it before. Anybody who from that base av of that day who never brought ketores before comes and be part of the raffle for the incense of the afternoon. What if everybody had a chance? Everybody who's present one time brought the ketores. Then you start again. You make a raffle for everybody in the third raffle, and whoever won it in the morning wins it also in the afternoon. Halacha tes b'Shabbos. On Shabbos, there was an additional consideration. Sheyesham Temidin Umusafin u'shnei baziche levaina. There wasn't only the morning sacrifice. There was also the additional Shabbos sacrifices, and there was the 2 spoons that accompanied the lechem apanim, the showbread, as we'll discuss momentarily and at length tomorrow. What did they do with this? Ketzadhem oivdin. How do you do the work, the service for this? It says the Rambam mefisin b'shachar anshe oise besav shal mishmar hayotze. The leaving family, because the rotating families used to switch on Shabbos. So the one that was exiting that day, they made the raffle for the morning. Umakrivin tamid shal shachar ushnei kivsei oila shal musafin. And the leaving mishmar got the rights to the morning daily sacrifice plus the 2 additional musaf sacrifices, the sheep, for Shabbos. The kol shezacha ba'avoda me'avodas tamid shal shachar hu zeicha ba b'shnei kivsei musaf. Whoever won the raffle for the morning sacrifice continues doing that stage of service for the musaf sacrifice. Then they leave before the afternoon sacrifice is brought. The hamishmar ha'acher shenichnas b'Shabbos, the second family that enters on Shabbos, mefisin piases acheres latamid shel bein ha'arbayim, they make other raffles for the afternoon sacrifice. Ve'elu chilkim b'lechem apanim, and then both the leaving and the entering watches, mishmars, would divide the showbread, the lechem apanim. They could not eat the breads until the 2 spoons were offered on the fire of the altar. And the frankincense required to have salt like other sacrifices. Anything goes on the altar has to be salted before. You would bring the 2 spoons of frankincense right after the korban musaf. 2 kohanim, each one got 1 of the spoons. And then they would divide the showbreads. Here's the lechem apanim. Keitzad chelkin lechem apanim b'chol Shabbos hashana. How did they divide the 12 showbreads? It was 12. This is on Shabbos when they were switching it out, as we'll see tomorrow. They took off the 12 old ones, put on the 12 new ones. But there was 12 every week. So how would they divide these breads amongst the entering and leaving watches, all Shabbos of the year? Mishmar hanichnas neitel sheish chalis, so mishmar hayotze neitel sheish. 6 went to the entering mishmar, and 6 went to the exiting mishmar. Hanichnasin chelkin b'neian batzafain sharein muchanin la'avoda. The ones that were entering would divide their breads in the north side of the Azara temple courtyard. So this is the west side. Here's the north. This is where most of the temple service was done. They would divide their bread here, sharein muchanin la'avoda, because they're ready to serve. And most of the service was done here. And the exiting mishmar were divided in the south of the Azara. If any of the 3 major holidays fell out to be on Shabbos, or on Shabbos in the middle of a holiday, Chol HaMoed of Pesach or Sukkot. So since, as we learned in the beginning of this book, on holidays all the mishmares came to serve in the temple, it was too bad for that week's set up mishmar. If that was your week, you had to divide the lechem apanim with everybody. All mishmars who came to the temple got an equal portion in the lechem apanim. So too, if the first day of Yom Tov came on Sunday. So anyway, everyone had to come the day before on Shabbos, even though it's not yet holiday. Chilkin kol mishmaris b'shaveh mi'erev Yom Tiv shehu Shabbos b'lechem apanim. All the mishmars would divide equally on the Shabbos before. The day before the holiday, the lechem apanim of that day. They had to come early to serve. There was no other choice. Also, the last day of holiday was on Friday, and it went right into Shabbos. All the mishmars would divide equally the lechem apanim of that Shabbos, the day after the holiday. This was an enactment by the sages. We want the kohanim to stay on the premises of the temple longer, so that they can get a portion of the lechem apanim. And what would this ensure? So if one of the new weeks, right, because Shabbos is after the holiday, the new week's mishmar for the next week is supposed to show up today. If they wouldn't show up, the kohanim who had stayed later from after the holiday to get their portion of lechem apanim, now yimatzei acher, now there's somebody else to take his place, he can fill in for the kohen who's missing. What if there was one day between the Shabbos and the holiday? If the Shabbos goes into the holiday, or if holiday goes into Shabbos, so all mishmars stay get the lechem apanim equally. What if there's one day in between? Holiday ends Thursday, and there's Friday, then Shabbos. Or Shabbos, then there's Sunday, and then holiday begins Monday. The beginning of a holiday was Monday, the end of a holiday was Thursday. Or Shavuos, which is one day, was on Monday or Thursday. So then, we don't do either. We don't do 6 and 6, we don't do everybody gets divided equally. Rather, mishmar shezman kavua be'oisa Shabbos neitel ester chalas. Whichever mishmar fell out to be that week takes 10 of the 12 chalas. V'zah nichnas neitel shtayim, and the one coming in only takes 2. Because they're only going to be alone for one day. Shehu erev Shabbos echad b'Shabbos, either Friday or Sunday. After that, or before that, everybody was there. Because of that, whatever mishmar was that week would be lazy. Not all the kohanim would come. They'd say, everyone else is coming. So because there was factually less kohanim from that mishmar, they only got 2 chalas. The high priest would always take half of the breads, whatever breads the watch got. So you really think you walked away with 6 chalas, you ended up with 3, because the high priest got half of it. Because it says clearly in the verse, the hoisa le'aharon ulevanov. The lechem apanim is supposed to be enjoyed by Aaron and his sons. Mechza le'Aaron, mechza le'banav. Half goes to Aaron, half goes to his sons. Ve'ein kein gadol neitel pras she'ein ze kveidai. The high priest never takes a portion of the bread. It's not honorable. Takes full breads. Half of whatever breads they got goes right to the kohen gadol.